search curation piece is the first part of like what brands are really starting to care about. It's very clinical, but you're going to have to like codify your vibe. So everything that you want a human to feel on your website, you now have to like give it a tag, give it a code so that the agent assistant can pick that up. That feels very clinical. So I feel like that's not the romantic, emotional experience brands want to have. So they're going to have to keep both going on their website. But I do think that's where, and other AI tools will probably come into the mix to help with this, but making sure that you're always expressing what you would normally to give people in a picture or the layout of your website, even just how you go through your transaction, that energy needs to be coded so that the AI agent can pick it up.
Welcome to the Digital Edge, everyone. I'm Ellie Ronning. I'm your host. I am so excited today. I have a really special guest. We're going to start talking about some e-commerce kind of apparel trends that we're seeing in the industry. And we're really going to hone in on two kind of, I think, powerful shifts that are happening in the industry. So one, agentic commerce, everyone's favorite topic. And two, just some kind of like new retail kind of economics that are really driving growth and change in different organizations. So I am joined by my very special guest, Alicia Chaffee. She is the head of strategy at Dôen. If you don't know this brand, I encourage you to look up the website. It's the dreamiest California women's wear dresses. Just think like boho California. Alicia is a retail industry vet. She's been around the block and back. She's had leadership roles at Ann Taylor, Rag & Bone, Frame, all in roles that really sit at the intersection of merchandising, data, and customer experience. So I'm so excited for you to be here, Alicia. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to talk.
For all the listeners as well, transparently, Alicia and I go way, way back. So I don't even know, 12 years-ish. So that's also why I'm very excited about this episode, because she and I were in the trenches during our Ann Taylor days, and we are still friends.
Yes.
So before we jump into anything like specific, Dôen had a really, I think, fascinating year last year with your Gap collaboration. There's kind of this resurgence of some of these niche kind of fashion brands and contemporary brands, especially in the women's wear space. So I'd love to just have you tell the audience kind of what your remit is at Dôen, like what you oversee just in general, just to kind of introduce yourself.
So at Dôen, I partner with our executive team to really focus and build out both our short and long-term business initiatives. I've been really focused on our technology infrastructure. I want to make sure that the tools that we're using and bringing in really allow us to work smarter, more efficiently, and that they're not just some shiny new thing that tacks on and is another thing to manage. I really want to make sure that our technology meets our employees and our customers where we're at and will take us kind of into that future. As you mentioned, the brand just continues to grow and grow and grow, which is so exciting. I just want to make sure that kind of the technology and the processes we have behind the scenes are really going to continue to scale with us.
So let's talk about agentic. So we just saw each other at NRF a few weeks ago, which was super fun. And it was also chaotic, right? Because NRF is like a circus of retail people running around a huge convention center. So we just saw each other at NRF. And I think one of the topics that I enjoyed chatting with you about in real life was like what's now becoming the buzzword of agentic commerce. And kind of you were around when omnichannel was the buzzword 15 plus years ago. I do feel like this is kind of the same feeling, same flavor of a lot of people are talking about it. I don't know that everybody knows either the definition of it or kind of their definition of it as an organization, and B, if they've even really executed against what I guess the perception in the market is, right? Like the perception right now that I kind of have gotten is that everyone's doing agentic commerce, everyone's got their toe in it. I guess my first question is, where do you think, and it can be Dôen or just in retailers in general, like where do you think retailers are on this kind of AI and agentic commerce journey as organizations? Because I do think there's perception and there's reality of people, actual operators like yourself. So I'd love to just kind of understand where you think people are at.
I think the reality is they're both really embracing it, but then also totally not ready for it. A lot of companies probably skipped over just the general, like, let's have a system to do this. Let's have a formulaic algorithm in the background. Not everything has to be this generative AI to get you kind of predictive answers. But I think that with AI, people are really excited to just like go for it. So we are definitely in the beginning stages of like what agentic means for us. I think a lot of brands are just trying to figure out kind of what that's going to look like. The realities are probably going to rely on their current tech stack and just look for those tech providers to be kind of including AI into their normal processes. I think the big thing for me is it shouldn't just be AI can make you this new report from like stuff that you already have. It should be really fixing that, like, maybe this tool doesn't work as perfectly as I wish it did. If AI can help solve some of that, that will be huge. Yeah, I think customers will start to shift towards agentic, but I think it's going to take some time. I do think brands are looking at it as kind of a new channel of marketing.
That's like the phrase I keep going to is like, you think about like wholesale, direct to consumer, brick and mortar. It is kind of a new channel. It's not really a channel of business, but it sort of is, right? It's a different experience.
And I think that's where it's kind of a combo of like, it will be new and marketing will have to care about it and think about it and how it's going to potentially cannibalize and impact their other channels, but also be new. But then it's also about the kind of just sales and operations people, like their agents are going to be transacting with you. So it's no longer just your customer, it's your customer's agent. And how do you make sure that that is a smooth kind of transaction and kind of interaction for them?
It's interesting because I'm not surprised by your answer, I guess. Like I heard a lot of people, especially at NRF in the last couple weeks where I've been just interacting with different clients, is like, that does seem to be the sentiment is we're still trying to figure it out as an organization. But I love the point you made about partnering with tech vendors or people that are already in your stack that you already have a relationship with, and maybe pushing them a little bit more to be like, hey, how are you showing up in kind of that innovation space? Because frankly, I think those are obviously the people that are going to be best poised to help move into this agentic world versus merchants who, they're not born technologists, right? And so finding the partners that can really help you get there instead of, to your point, just trying to like do it all yourself, which is really, frankly, impossible. So related, I guess, a question, and this was also something I have been thinking a lot about is, so everyone's talking about agentic and everyone's kind of trying to define what that means, right? Like, is it, to your point, an agent searching for you? Is it an agent transacting for you? Or is it you going on to ChatGPT and, creating your folders and saving all of these kind of more generative kind of searches? And so there's needs definition, right? And so we're kind of moving, though, into this phase of everyone's kicking around the new word like GEO and AEO instead of search engine optimization. It's now like, answer optimization and like, generative. And so as people are kind of moving toward consumers are moving towards this kind of agentic search and discovery phase, what I feel like is sort of not quite there yet is the entire journey being agentic, meaning like I'm starting in the search phase on a platform or, like a UI, like a chat GPT, and I'm taking that all the way through to kind of like that transaction experience. So I'd love to know, like, again, just drilling down a little deeper, kind of what your thoughts are with like that purchase experience. Like, is that something retailers are thinking about right now? Again, like, are they even really there yet? And stitching together that kind of full customer kind of journey.
I think that like search curation piece is the first part of like what brands are really starting to care about. It's very clinical, but you're going to have to like codify your vibe. So everything that you want a human to feel on your website, you now have to like give it a tag, give it a code so that the agentic AI agent assistant can pick that up. That feels, very clinical. So I feel like that's not the romantic, emotional experience brands want to have. So they're going to have to keep both going on their website. But I do think that's where, and other AI tools will probably come into the mix to help with this, but making sure that you're always expressing what you would normally to give people in a picture or the layout of your website, even just how you go through your transaction, that energy needs to be like coded so that the AI agent can pick it up. But I think it's going to be a great opportunity for both sides because instead of a shopper trying to figure out, okay, what 3 words do I need to put into Google to find like the perfect outfit for this or perfect anything, honestly. It can be any consumer good, perfect pan for my stove. If you are just chatting with your AI assistant, then you can have a conversation and like a lot more of the words and like what you're looking for in a brand will get picked up. As long as on the brand side, you are making sure those catchphrases, those words that like a customer is usually using when they go on a brand searching journey are somewhere kind of there for the AI assistant to pick up.
That's really interesting. The codifying of it. I never thought about it that way, but I love that. It's like you're gonna have to do a little legwork, right?
Yeah. I think the other side of agentic that like maybe isn't being as talked about is like everyone's thinking I will start in ChatGPT or Claude or something like that always. And I think brands also can harness that power on their own within their own website of having their own agent act with the customer. Because once you have some loyalty, people will still probably go to your site first to do their shopping. And then I think if brands feel like they have more control over the agent, they'll be willing to share maybe some more private company information. That agent will have maybe just more data that the company wouldn't necessarily want to put on their website, but will be in the agent's knowledge bank so that the customer really can have like a perfect curated experience, but stay within the world of the brand.
I agree. Like, I don't know if I personally, I don't know any of my friends or family that are doing like agentic purchasing. And that's a really good point that if you are really loyal to a brand, you're likely just going to their app or going to their site all the time. And so it's like my search and discovery point of origination is actually very different than someone who like literally has never shopped your brand before or whatever, right? So that's really fascinating, actually. And that's also where I think, let's just say you are searching on a Claude or a Chat GPT and you get the information, you're doing all your searching and all your discovery. You get that info. What I feel still happens is you close the session or you turn off your phone, and then several hours, days, weeks later, you already have that information in your head as a human. So you're going to just go directly, likely you're going to go to that website, right? Like that's kind of what my gut says. And frankly, that's what I do as a consumer is I need the information, I get it, but I do actually go straight to that merchant's website because there's nowhere in that session or that experience where I can actually, like, the website's there for me to just do a one-click purchase, right? Yet. Maybe it will be.
It will probably be determined with like, yeah, customers' level of previous knowledge of like what they're searching. So if you're looking for something that you've never really purchased, you might be totally comfortable staying within the AI assistant world and being like, okay, I've had a conversation with you for 20 minutes and this is the thing we've picked. And so like, I'm going to click purchase and you're going to go do the next steps. Whereas, yeah, if you're aware of a couple brands that you already like and the AI assistant just gives you like, oh, I think you want this brand and this exact item, you probably are going to be more easily like able to store that in your brain. And then, yeah, like what you're saying, a couple weeks later, go back to it. And so I think it's just how much do you know about what you're buying initially? And that will probably determine how quickly you're going to convert with AI agentically or with the brand itself.
Right. It's like an association thing too, like you're saying. Like you just kind of already know if you know what brands you shop all the time. And so that's like a learned behavior over time that I think is going to be hard to kind of like break down or change. Even for things that you buy like over and over again, I still do think like I'm certainly not doing that yet. So related, one thing you said a couple minutes ago was so the thing about back to the codifying kind of like merchants needing to basically make sense of their products and their their brand vibe or whatever, so that the agent can like find them, right? Or like in the generative search it can be found. It kind of brings me to my second favorite topic, which I also chatted with you about at NRF, but also I'm just chatting about in general, is this, I would say newer, not new, certainly I think people are thinking about it, but this newer concept of unified commerce, which is different than omnichannel, right? And so for those of you who maybe are newer to the retail world, like omnichannel is kind of, providing that seamless experience across all your channels of business, right? Whether it's wholesale, brick and mortar, it's kind of like that brand looks exactly the same online as it does in the store. And that's the omnichannel experience. There's also like omnichannel fulfillment, right? So you can get, your item and it doesn't really matter where it comes from. You as a consumer are getting it at the speed you want, the item you want, it's in stock. So that's omnichannel. Unified commerce, though, is, the way I think about it, and you can definitely, add some more detail here since you're in the real world, is on the back end operationally. It's this concept of all of the information and the data is actually now kind of pooled together. It's unsiloed, right? So we've come from, and you and I have worked in this world where all the data is from different systems. You've got data in your ERP, in your order management system, in your planning system. And it's like, nothing is ever the same, right? You're always reconciling. And it's like, what's the source of truth? And so unified commerce brings all that together operationally so that pool of inventory, there's no more like, this is online, this is brick and mortar inventory. It's just all the inventory, right? Or it's all of the, fulfillment information, and it's one company effectively, right? Instead of chopped up like channels that are trying to kind of compete with each other. So with this need, I guess, for retailers to start making sense for agents, I would expect that you also need to start thinking about a unified commerce strategy, right? Like, does that feel, because how are you going to do that? Yeah. So I'd love to just hear kind of your opinion on where are retailers even with unified commerce as a organizational strategy, and kind of how that plays into this whole like agentic world.
I think this is where there's the highest data risk of that garbage in, garbage out kind of thing that people love to talk about at tech conferences. It is true, because if you don't have your systems talking to each other, and honestly, I think it's just hard for any company to really have like crystal clear insight into how every teeny tiny piece of their business is working. I think that's everyone's dream. And like, I think the big companies get there because they have like giant tech teams, they have data people that are purely dedicated to just making sure that all the transactions from this system talk to that system. There's data cleaning. So I think companies are starting to, the small to mid-sized companies are also starting to prioritize and try to work that way. But I think it's also like retailers just have to be realistic about where their data is. And it doesn't mean you're always going to be here, but if you're pretty sure about something, I think you can start to expose and make sure that data is available for AI agents and kind of this agentic world. I think you just need to kind of make it a little bit less specific and maybe more broad and like what you're sharing with the agent. So I think what's nice is the example I was thinking about, like inventory is always like the first thing that comes to mind. Maybe you're not like 100%.
It's always a mess.
Yeah, exactly. And that's because it's physical product. It's hard to like 100% know where it's at all times. RFID is kind of helping, but that's still another hurdle that I think a lot of companies are working on. But like, even if you're pretty sure about your inventory accuracy, you can expose that. You can have kind of contact information on your website. The assistant, because it's working agentically, can look at that, look at the contact information, either give that to the customer and say, you can call the store, but I'm pretty sure it's in this location. Or like an agent can call the store for you. Like, I feel like that's new technology that's out there. Like, so it's almost like these agents are going to help bridge kind of maybe where your data is not 100% perfect, but they're going to be able to help connect the dots for the customer. You have to be realistic about where you are with your data, but like not feel like it's a hindrance. Like you probably have good stuff. It's just how accurate is it, and being kind of realistic with that and not kind of overexposing. And then you get a lot of weird things coming back from the AI tools.
Yeah. Everyone talks about AI hallucinating.
Yeah. And that's where it's like if it's not exposed also like in an accurate way, all of a sudden your AI agent's gonna be like suggesting like your old product to your customers and their searches, and then they're gonna get to your website. They're not gonna see it. They're gonna have a bad experience. And like you might not know any of that because it's all kind of shielded by kind of the AI layer. So there's also kind of like less ability for you to kind of fix that. So I think it's just making sure that you are really crystal clear in like what you do know and how comfortable you are kind of putting that out there for the AI assistants to pick up.
So we actually, to back up, we also chatted about Shopify's new kind of product syndication efforts, which was something they launched at NRF, which is like, hey, you are going to be part of this ecosystem that is searchable in a generative or a agentic setting. Yeah, whether that's in ChatGPT or whoever. If you're storefront is Shopify. And I guess one thing that I don't know, and maybe we don't, maybe both of us don't know the answer to this, but how is that changing how you're getting your results to like the top of the heap? So I feel like back in the day, like with search engine optimization, it was like keywords and key phrases, and the more you whatever I don't know, refined that, you were like at the top of that search when I went to Google. And I'm just curious how that's changing now in like a generative or like a, agentic kind of search. Like you'd mentioned like the codifying and using more tags and things like that. Is that essentially what retailers have to do, or like is there something else to it? It feels complex to me, and I don't I don't know if that is or just is because that's unknown.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely don't think I have the right answer for this. And I don't think it's just like add every buzzword you possibly can to your website or to this Shopify syndicated platform, whatever it is. I think it's about, again, like you have to stay very intentional about like what makes your brand different, because I think it's the differences that will start to stand out in this world of the agentic or the assistants kind of picking up everything. And if you can't clearly define that offline, then it's going to be really hard to like put it into the data to be picked up. So I think I'm sure there will be like start to be tools. And in the same way that like when Google search started, there wasn't like all tons of optimization tools out there and like agencies that can figure it all out for you. You just had to kind of type in your brand or type in your product and change things until it started popping up at the top. So I do think that there will be just a phase of testing because we're dealing with AI. That testing period will probably go a lot faster because you can have AI test the AI.
Is that meta?
Yeah. But again, all these like agents and AI systems are kind of starting to talk to each other, and it gets a little weird on the internet, I think now. But I do think that for the brand, it will be a lot of just like test and discovery of like how it's working. But again, I think if you have the more clear you are about who you are as a brand offline, the easier it's going to be to make that happen online, which I think a lot of brands do well anyway. But I think just it becomes even more important because yes, you're being compared at a very like granular level now.
The robots are comparing you.
The robots will really make you self-reflect.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. We're talking about agentic, which I could talk about honestly all day because I'm fascinated by it, and I think we are just seeing the tip of the iceberg. I don't think retailers have all the answers yet, but I do certainly think it's like a kind of a new world that people are excited about. So I'm excited to see. I think it's going to move quickly this year. But kind of zooming back out, just I guess like, AI in general, and this is, probably everyone asks you this question, but from an organizational perspective, when you look at running your business, maybe this has already happened, or maybe it's something that you're planning for or you're thinking about at a high level, is like, how else can AI help you as an organization change things meaningfully, whether that's helping generate top line revenue or helping gain efficiencies, which hit your bottom line. There's all the agentic and the experience stuff, but then there's really a lot of there's a lot of leveling up that organizations can do with AI internally. And so I think that's sort of an undeniable piece of the equation as well.
I hope, and I think I'm maybe taking an optimistic side of this. I hope what it will mean is instead of just companies being like, oh, now we can run our whole company on like 4 people and they'll just like be the puppet masters of all these AI agents, which some companies will definitely go that direction. But I'm hoping that it will be, you can keep your organization very focused on decision making and this maybe some of the skills of like, oh, I'm not a coder. Instead of taking a week to build a deck of like to make sure it's including all of this stuff, like very specific things, AI can kind of help you, yes, take shortcuts. But I think if the focus remains that like the humans can be the decision makers and really come up with the innovative ideas, because at the end of the day, you're selling to human customers. Yes, they might use an AI agent, but like we're all still people. So I think what speaks to us in a shopping journey like has to remain human, but those humans don't need to be worrying as much about like, it takes an hour to get all the data organized and I have 20 minutes to analyze it. It can be completely flipped. So I think I'm very passionate about data in general being centralized and being easy to use. That's very much step one. And then I think AI can add to that because it can make sure that kind of your processes stay aligned, and it can kind of be, again, your coach, your editor, your project manager. So I think there's kind of internal efficiencies in that way. But I think also from a growth standpoint, yes, it's going to be able to help kind of, I think, nudge people into thinking, I guess, making more decisions because they're, again, less bogged down by just the management of it all.
I think the other thing we chatted about too was, I think I used the phrase data exhaust, which is also like what I feel like a phrase that gets thrown around a lot at like the tech trade shows. But AI helping so kind of going one layer down with some of the precision work. So to your point, and you and I come from planning world, so like demand forecasting and dynamic pricing and like promotional, like just getting more kind of granular and like precise, which is always the goal, or like that's always the hope for, merchants always have this hope that you can be one step ahead. So instead of being reactive in season, you can be more predictive, for lack of a better word. And so I think that's also something really interesting, an interesting application for AI in general.
We've already started seeing a shift, I hope, of companies not just relying on hindsighting metrics or hindsighting KPIs, but really making sure that they have a way to project that out forward and have a forward-looking view. I think that's the only real way that you can make real, like, good decisions. Because what happened in the past, maybe you can summarize it a lot faster, but it's totally maybe not where you're going in the future. And the two things kind of have to talk to each other. But I do think that that's still kind of sometimes when I talk to tech vendors, like a epiphany for them. I'm like, okay, great. You can give me a great dashboard, but like, is there predictive elements to this? And they're like, oh no. Okay, well, that's wonderful. You save a lot of time there, but I still need to kind of see how it impacts kind of the forward business. So I think that almost is now table stakes of making sure that every technology that you're using has both kind of backwards and forwards looking ability without kind of a human having to do much other than evaluate the forecast. But then I think the more important element is making sure that the people who are looking at the data are connected to the people who make the decisions about changing product or changing business. I think what tends to happen is you have kind of data people, even if they're not like officially a data team, but there's certain teams that are much more oriented to reviewing dashboards and reviewing selling history, reviewing selling forecasts, but they're not always like super connected to the people who are making the product. I think if you can break down that silo and have people really working together to come up with ideas to test, that's how you change business outcomes. And I think it should really be a test, not a full overhaul of anything.
We don't want to get crazy.
Yeah, even though a KPI can be like, ooh, that looks really scary. Again, you're looking into the future. There's no crystal balls. So you just want to be able to like, okay, like let's try changing this. Maybe it's not the product itself, but it's how we sell the product, how we talk about the product. But there might be another layer of like, we actually should change the product because of this data result that we're getting. But you really need kind of everyone on the same page to make that decision and make it happen.
I love that. Putting things into action, actionable insights, and to your point, like predictive analytics. Well, this has been great. Before we wrap, for any retail leaders that are listening or merchants that are listening, one practical step that they can maybe take today to get ready or to feel that they've made a little progress in this kind of new world that everyone is kind of exploring.
I think the most important thing to start with is, again, identify the 2 or 3 things that make your brand special, and then go start using the AI assistants and see if that's being picked up. If it's not, start changing things and try to see what works. If you get really lucky and the AI agent like gives you exactly the result you were hoping back, great, but your job's not done yet. Ask about your competitors, ask about what might knock you out of kind of the running of their suggestions. The nice thing with AI is like you do get to just chat with it. You can get more descriptive feedback than you would with just maybe some of the data that we're used to looking at. But I think it's just most important to stay curious and try new things. I think we're all kind of learning as we go.
We absolutely are all learning as we go. It's been fascinating. I'm doing my own unscientific research with different merchants that I speak with, and honestly, the answers are wildly different, and it's really interesting to me, having kind of lived in this world for as long as we both have. Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I think this is such a top of mind topic, and it will be really throughout this whole year. And so I think just even having a few nuggets for our listeners to kind of walk away with, noodle on, start to think about it in their own organizations is, I think, super helpful, because everyone's kind of going through the same thing. Everyone's a little like, what's going on?
It's like such an exciting time, but it's also like so scary. 'Cause you're like, what is the playbook? And like, there isn't one yet. Someone might tell you that there is, and like by tomorrow, it's outdated.
Well, thank you, Alicia, for being here. Thank you to our listeners. This was a really fun topic for us to chat about. You know, the digital edge, we're really all about everything retail, e-commerce, and everything in between. So you can expect more topics like this in the future. And it was lovely having you. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.